Hello and welcome to Perspectives. I'm a very pessimistic person and I introspect in absolute pessimism. And I think 4 days, I think every Thursday when I'm burnt out by the week, my week doesn't end on Friday, on Thursday, I sit and go, why do I do TV? I cannot do political wrestling. I cannot do the morning dancing. I can't do any of the things which make you successful in media. And then I would have this conversation with my mother, my father, my wife, saying, I'm done with this. I'm going to throw the towel in. I don't want to do this anymore. It's just boring. And then every now and then when I'm really, really feeling low, something happens. And I say, hang on. Here's an opportunity to say something right. And in this introspection, I made a great friend who came to my show for completely irrelevant stuff. Now that I realize who he is and what he does, sitting next to me, Mr. Saad Amanullah, CEO of Gillette, Pakistan. I think hi-fi, houghty-towty, executive type. And then one day after the show, we're driving back and he tells me what he does. He works with a lot of NGOs, a lot of fantastic work happening in Pakistan. I said, you know what? What you need to do, sir, is take advantage of TV and use the great, amazing work happening in Pakistan. And bring those people who are doing this fantastic work. Also, it's not just Pakistanis, NGO aunties siphoning off money, as we like to call them and how we believe and perceive NGOs to be. There are good NGOs. There is great work happening. Now, what is my way of saying this is a good one or a bad one? Well, Mr. Saad Amanullah. Because I trust him. And if he says it's good, it's good. So he has taken over the responsibility of introducing as many good work projects in Pakistan as possible. He was here last week, and I've actually given Thursday to him, Thursday of Perspectives to him. Last Thursday, he was here, and we introduced 4 fantastic projects to you. And today, once again, he's here with some fantastic people I just met, great people who are doing great work, and we would take this opportunity to introduce these projects to you. Twitter, I will be including, and of course, we will try to take live phone calls as well. Keep them precise, short. My guest on my far right is the Executive Director of Injaz, Pakistan, Ms. Azra Maqsood. Azra, thank you very much for taking time out. On my right, CEO of Teach for Pakistan Project, Ms. Khadija Bakhtiar. Thank you very much. On my left, of course, Ms. Saad Amanullah. Thank you, Saad, for doing this. And on my far left, a visitor, a guest in Pakistan, Mr. Richard Geary, who is the Executive Director of Family Educational Services Foundation. Thank you all of you for taking time out. Saad, why don't you start and tell us a bit about what these people are doing, and then we'll let them talk about it as well.
Okay, today the NGOs we have gathered here are all in one or the other ways are about education.
All right.
Now it could be education of a minority group of this country, like people who cannot, who have some disabilities. I would not call them like deaf, but they have a different way of communicating. Sure. And I think Mr. Richard will be explaining to you a lot about that. And it's amazing. In fact, since I met Richard, I always tell him, finding out that he and his group of foreign friends have been in this country for 26 years, I say you're more Pakistanis than some of us, because we have not done so much work for 26 years. And then on the other side, we've got, Teach for Pakistan. It's very close to my heart. Even when I was the ABC president, we kind of invited all the fellows. These are graduates, people who kind of graduate from LUMS, IBA, even from America. They take 2 years off. It's a global program. It's been brought to Pakistan by Aman Foundation. And then finally, Azra does this Injaz way. What the wonderful thing is, in our education system, it's very academic. So by the time you graduate,
not well-rounded.
It's purely academic. They don't teach you what real life is all about.
Well said.
She comes in and she teaches these kids a little more about what the life goal is, entrepreneurship, what business life is all about. And so when they graduate or they come out of school, they're a lot more balanced. It's an amazing program, and she'll probably explain to you more.
Azra, tell us about it.
What we do, one, obviously, thank you for having us over, all of us.
It's an honor and a pleasure to have you here.
And having us talk about education, not something which people actually pay a lot of attention to. One, I'd like to just clarify, we don't like to call ourselves an NGO. We like to call ourselves a social impact organization. All
Fantastic.
of our business units that are at Aman Foundation, or any project that has been initiated and incubated by Aman Foundation, we like to call them social impact organization, because that's exactly what we are trying to do. We are trying to create this social impact and a long-term impact on whatever communities, societies, groups we take on with. Injaz Pakistan is a much it's well networked with a much larger organization called Junior Achievement Worldwide, which is something like 94 years old now. It has 127 countries which are called member nations. Injaz Pakistan is the newest edition, and we started operations in 2012. What we do is we work around 3 education pillars: entrepreneurship, work readiness, and financial literacy. And these pillars that we talk about, basically we start talking to kids at a much earlier stage. I remember going to university and just doing a business degree because all friends were doing business degrees at that point in time, and it was just too cool to be at the IBA.
At times, रिश्ते भी बेहतर आते हैं.
वो खत्म हो चुका था मसला. Anyway,
but there was a time you can get better.
Okay.
University is a matchmaking area.
Achha, okay, wow, great. Not the ones we
come
went
on.
to. Not the ones
you don't know about it.
Faisal, not at IBA.
People
Take my word for it.
Well, you were hanging out the wrong lot, I would say.
I hung out with the nerdy lot, probably. Okay.
Look where it got you.
So what we do is, even at that point in time, there was a lot of just an aspiration to be what my uncle was, or what my sibling was, or what my cousin was, or what my friend was,
or
right?
the running trend was at that time.
Yes, that was. And it's still, unfortunately, it still is. There's still a lot of peer pressure, and kids do not actually start thinking about where they are headed once they are at an exit point. An exit point can be immediately after your grade 10 or your grade 12 or after university.
Sure.
So what we do is we work at a very young age with kids, starting as young as when they're in grade 8, and start helping them develop these life maps. Okay. Where would you see yourself once you're 20 years old and you're 40 years old and 60 years old? And what would you like to do if you were celebrating your 100th birthday? Just to talk about visions and aspirations and these type of things. So we have this curriculum which is very tested and which is amazingly done. We tweak it to match the culture here. We have translated some of our programs, so we want to scale them up to government schools. And we have run a few programs with Teach for Pakistan schools, which obviously again is very synergistic, being with Aman Foundation. So we go to these schools, we go to colleges, we go to universities, and we try to help students identify what they actually at least do not want to do, rather than what they want to do. So we start working with elimination.
That's a great approach.
That's how we do it. So when we work at grade 8 and grade 9, so the focus obviously is half the chunk is going to be ready to enter the workforce as employees, and half of them might be ready to enter the workforce as entrepreneurs, being job creators rather than just working. Those are the type of things we do. And the entire beauty and the way I ran into Saad was, the program is not done by school teachers. So you go into a school and they say, oh, we don't want to study this biology in Pakistan studies, and why is this teacher back again in class? And we're like, forget it, it's not them. Faisal is coming to do this course with you guys. It's just 1 hour a week, Faisal. How would you like to come and volunteer for our programs, type of thing? That is the pitch that we usually make, and the program is actually run with volunteers.
You can't do that. But
I just did that.
But I wish you had come to me when I was 14. I would have probably been doing something. I would have done something more constructive with life, probably.
How you define your own construction, actually.
Okay, before I come to the, I want you to spin off a slight offshoot. Well, I'll come to your project in a second, but the West, the industrialized world, has come to terms with alternate professions and careers. If you want to be a singer, if you want to be a painter, if you want to be if you want to be a shoemaker, that's fine. It's not a career you choose because you couldn't do anything better. Yeah. And that's our huge dilemma, that where if it's not a direct, immediate, bread-winning career, it's no. Whether even if our father's a billionaire, I have all the money in the world, I would still do what Daddy wanted me to do. I will never say, Dad, you have enough money, now can I just enjoy life and sail to and be in Antarctic? That's no. You have to become a textile engineer so you can run my textile mill. At what point in history did the industrialized world get over this problem?
This is a loaded question. I don't know if I'm
that's what I get paid for.
But I'll give you.
That's what I get paid for.
But perhaps I have somewhat of a unique perspective in that I've been living now in Pakistan for 25 years.
Impressive.
I'm now a Gora Pakistani. And obviously I've lived in the West. My wife is also from the Philippines. And I've lived in other countries. I've lived in India,
in the Middle East.
It's a man of the world.
So, and I find, you know, every country has its own unique culture, and there's, you know, the culture of Pakistan is very special. I mean, yes, it's got a lot of flaws and a lot of cons, but I greatly admire it. I think, you know, the family system, the unity, the warmth, the hospitality is really wonderful.
Absolutely.
I think so much of that problem is a direct result of the cultural sort of do's and don'ts, the goals, and I think the young people of today are breaking more free from those sort of restrictions than in the past, and they have the ability to do so. One, possibly due to the education they've received, because so many young people here go abroad, and it broadens their horizon. And the world is more global now, connected to the internet. There's so much more sharing of information.
It could also be because of lack of economic opportunity. And if I become an engineer, it just doesn't sell so much anymore. So I need to do something alternate. Am I right in that?
You're 100% right. You know, the problem that I see in this old, because when I grew up, when I was a child, was I engineer or doctor? I mean, there was nothing else.
Still is.
But still is. No, but the worst part is that my passion may be somewhere else. And believe me, with one thing that I keep telling students when I go to schools, that follow your passion. And that's where you can excel. If your passion is music, and believe me, you can do 100 times better in music than working as a finance manager or a finance person in bank. But unfortunately, the parents don't see it that way. They don't see music as a... I know some people, for example, maybe I'll name the person, you know, he's the head of Indus right now, Faisal Qureshi. His son wanted to play golf.
As a profession.
As a profession, he came to his father and said, you know, I had so much admiration for him. And he told me that, he said, fine, I think that's not a good idea, but frankly, if you really want to do it, prove it to me. I'll send you. And even today, he teaches golf.
Oh, fantastic.
And there's a profession. So, you know, there are people from our generation who have given this opportunity, but they are not many.
My brother's a doctor, he should have been a politician. My sister's a doctor, she should have been an artist. I am this, I should have been free man doing nothing really, just living off. Please, about your project.
Sure. So, I mean, just before I go on to Teach for Pakistan, I think that something like this, a question like this really triggers the thought, what is it that we're doing with our primary and secondary education that's not churning out the kind of independent thinking leaders that we really want to see in our country?
Independent thinking, great word.
Because I think it all ultimately comes down to what are you being taught, how are you being taught, and who is doing the teaching. Are you being taught to think for yourself? Are you being taught to think like an individual who believes in, you know, finding your own potential and finding what your calling is? Are you just being taught to, you know, just rote learn the stuff, get the skills, go on and make a decent amount of money so that you can live a life? So, I mean, I think that's where a program like Teach for Pakistan really comes in. As Azra mentioned, it's really a program that's currently happening in 28 countries around the world, and it's been brought to Pakistan by a small group of entrepreneurs working closely with the Aman Foundation. And the entire point of Teach for Pakistan really is we're asking the question, how can we harness the best human resource out there today, the brightest, most passionate young people today, and get them to come into education, specifically through teaching, rather than go off and lose them to either working abroad or in other sectors, right? Because the whole idea is how can we use their leadership to solve the problems that we see in education today, in our schools, in the system. And the way we do it is that we recruit graduates who are coming out of some of the best universities in Pakistan today, LUMS, IBA, but also the best public universities, Karachi University, NUST, and some universities abroad. And we train them and then we place them to teach for 2 years, where they commit their lives to teaching in schools that desperately need better teachers. So these are low-cost private schools and mostly public schools. And through those 2 years, the idea is that the kids who they're going to be teaching are, of course, going to be placed on a completely different path in life, right? It opens up a whole world of opportunity because they help these kids who are many, many grade levels behind where they need to be catch up. And on the other hand, we are giving these incredible people who have a great background themselves this leadership experience of 2 years where they're working in the most difficult circumstances and they're taking on the challenge in changing Pakistan. So that when they're done with this 2-year commitment, they then go on to become leaders who work towards education reform for the rest of their lives, whether it's through journalism
their own mindset is
their own mindset
altered.
Change. Exactly. And so the whole point of the program is that it has to be a two-way transformation. The kids they teach get a lot out of it, but they themselves come out very, very different people, and people who are driven to just go out and change the fact that all kids in Pakistan today don't get an excellent education. They want to change that.
So they see the flip side of life, basically.
Let me just say lighter side of Teach for Pakistan, because Khadija keeps inviting me. I talk to these fellows, and because I've got a passion.
You want to do that?
and I'll tell you the lighter side. When you talk to these students, they are not encouraged by their families. You know, when the student comes out of IBA or LUMS and he can go and join Procter & Gamble or Citibank, he suddenly says to his parents, no, I'm going to go and teach in this government school for 2 years. And they come, and when I was talking to them, they need that reassurance from people like us that, you know, if you do this, it will make you a much more balanced person. Yes, 2 years later you come back, and I think she's very right that these people mindsets change. And the other interesting thing is when I talk to these fellows is, you know, they have to teach in some places in Urdu. And they were in all cases. And usko mathematics Urdu mein padhani padti hai, science Urdu mein padhana padta hai. Even I can't teach it, but you know these students have taken the challenge and they work very hard. And my hats off to the Teach for Pakistan fellows for what they have done. And they changed. For example, when I went to the school in Sultanabad, I visited the school. She was telling me that there's a competition among the teachers. When this teacher showed up, this girl showed up from LUMS, the other teachers were already run of the mill. And suddenly, you know, all the students wanted to go with her, listen to her. So there was this entire competition of raising the standard. So I think this Teach for Pakistan is amazing. I think it's, we need to expand it more this time. I think you've got a lot more fellows. Yeah. And wish you all the best.
We now have 70 fellows in the program.
Well, we'll come to what you guys need in a second, because I also want to understand, I know you put me in the spot. I need to figure out in the next 35 minutes if you want to commit or not.
It's done.
Who does that? Who does that?
I just did that.
Really? Your friend, who else? Obviously your friends with Saad Amanullah. Richard, tell us about what you do.
Thank you, Faisal. Actually, I have great admiration for the two organizations which these ladies represent.
Absolutely.
They're real forces for good and forces for change, not just here in Pakistan, but, you know, in their global outreach. Really amazing program. I think my story is a little from a whole different angle, because we didn't set out or come from some organization. Just to give you a little background, when I'm a parent of a deaf child.
Okay.
And I first came to Pakistan in the late 80s. And one thing led to another. We started a very small tutorial center for poor deaf teenagers. A friend of ours had given us use of an office building in Sadr at Regal Cinema Chowk, up on the 5th floor. It was about as big as our living room right here. And we were bringing in 15 kids from Baldia Township every day. Okay. And myself and my son were teaching them, Bus and my wife. From those very small, humble beginnings, and our passion was always to work with deaf children because of our son's handicap. And we met some other like-minded foreigners here, and together we formed our organization called Family Education Services. And we had two passions. One was to develop a program which would be very innovative and build capacity in reaching out, providing education for the deaf. The other one was to work with youth, not necessarily disabled youth, but youth in the community, because they're such a force for change and, you know, making a difference. So we had two flagship programs that we now, all these many years later, have going. And one is called the Deaf Reach program, which we have schools for deaf children. And from that small beginning, we now have 5 schools operating in Pakistan and 3 new schools coming up. We have School In. And our goal was to reach out to the underserved. You know, traditionally, a school for the deaf will have a sort of an institutional approach, and they're based either in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. But 80% of Pakistan lives in the rural areas. So we have the only branch network of schools for the deaf in the country. And we have a school in Hyderabad, in Sakkar, Nawab Shah, Lahore. Another school now is coming up in Tando Aliyar, and in Gilgit-Baltistan, a school coming up. So, but I just want to share one aspect of this, that if we look at deaf people, you know, Pakistan has, there's an amazing statistic just to create some awareness, because deafness is like an invisible handicap. You can't tell someone's deaf until you actually try to communicate with them. And which most deaf people don't normally speak, because speech is a function of hearing. It's a mimic function, and that's why all babies learn their native tongue without having to learn it, right? Sure. So in Pakistan, you have a very high incidence of deafness. This is due to lack of medical care in early years, is due to intermarriage and a lot of factors. But right now, roughly there's about 1.5 million children of school age who are deaf, who need some sort of special education. Yet only 10,000, not even 10,000, have access to education. So there's this huge gap out of 1.5 million. Ouch. So I look at it as an amazing opportunity. It's a niche market, if you will, to really tap into and provide facilities for these kids to learn. And we have a very holistic program, because it's not just education. We're teaching all the same syllabus as the metric. Our kids sit for the metric exam. In fact, we had our group, our first 9th class last year, and they got all A's and A pluses on their core subjects.
Super.
And we're teaching skills training, marketable skills training, so that obviously they can gain employment. And then we have an employment program where we create and liaise with the corporate sector and create jobs. So we have kids working at DHL, UBL. There's KFC restaurants. If you've gone to the KFC across from Urdu College, it's run 100% by deaf people. This was our project. And there's 5 branches in the country, with a new one coming up in DHA, right across the cricket ground, which, and I'll tell you, the chicken tastes better. So, it's made with a lot of love, you know. And so, if we look at the deaf not as
getting advertising on the show now.
If we look at the deaf not as a disability group, but as a minority cultural group that's defined by their native tongue, which is their signed language, then we realize they just need education to be empowered and training. We're the ones who are handicapped because we don't speak their language.
Well, I think
and that's a different perspective.
Very well said. Let's not call them deaf.
We'll call them that, because that's politically correct, by the way. They are deaf.
I'm
hearing impaired doesn't.
Absolutely. If I meet German, I speak no German, he speaks no English. It's the same communication gap as I would have with a deaf person who speaks sign language.
Well, I'll teach you your first sign. That means I love you. No, that's a hard rock sign. This means nothing.
That's I love you.
Now your roots are coming out, because
my hard rock's coming out. I'm going to take a short break, but I want to mention something really bizarre. And it's something I've believed in thoroughly. And I'm going to give you 2 examples here. I believe that, I'm going to get stupidly metaphysical for a second. I believe we're all interconnected, very deeply interconnected. And our lives are really, really locked in. We just don't see it. Mr. Saad Amanullah and I went to dinner for the first time in our lives about last week. And never met, don't know each other. And we started on the dining table, we started sharing our life stories. And turns out we were in the same places, going through the same life stories at the same time in history. Going back 15 years, he was going through something I was going through, and we were both at the same place. We probably even crossed each other. We just never knew each other. And Mr. Richard Geary actually has his office right behind mine. And your address is actually just 1 digit off mine. You're 16C3, I'm 16C2. Let's take a short break. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Perspectives. When I did political talk shows, I always used to say if the camera ever went on accidentally during a break, governments would fall, because they're all friends, really. Over here, I wish the cameras would go on, because decent conversation. Azra, I'd like to start with you. What sort of volunteer opportunities? I know. What sort of volunteer, people who come of their own will and accord, who are not muscled into coming, What sort of opportunities are available to people to work with you? One. Secondly, how are you funded? What are your requirements? Are you looking for something? Do you need any help?
Yeah, I'd like $50,000 from every sponsor if he can give it to me. I'd love that.
You should ask, and one Richie sitting here.
I know about that one. I've already made the pitch there. Okay. Seriously speaking, it's difficult. What my experience has been, when you're pitching for corporate volunteerism or corporate philanthropy, honestly, it's easier getting money out of people than asking them to give their time.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is we do a little emotional and a marketing pitch, and we go
No, really, I would have never guessed that one.
Oh yeah, it did work with Saad. It did work with PNG, by the way.
I'm smart.
Anyway,
okay.
So what we do is we go back and say, so you never had this opportunity, and you are still stuck being something you didn't want to be. Come and talk to these kids and tell them what it takes to do what they really want to do. Is it all risk? Is it all creativity? How do you go about convincing your parents this? I want to be an artist. I want to write plays. I want to be another Harry Potter author type of thing, right? So what does it take? So what we do is we talk to these volunteers, and the volunteers, fortunately for us, a lot of organizations today are, market tilted towards corporate social responsibility.
Right.
So you see, you immediately capitalize or leverage on that, and you say, so you guys are looking for CSR opportunities. Why are you groping in the dark? Talk to us. We give you a flexible, structured CSR program, which is sustainable. So it's not that you do it once a month and then it's gone, or you do it once a year. Oh, I spent a crazy day there, and I completed 4 hours of community service. Okay, this is just not about fanfare. It's actually productive work that you're doing as a volunteer. So you go, there is sustainability, there's flexibility. I can go to a school, work with a school, and the school says, okay, fine, why doesn't Injaz bring the personal economics program on a Monday, let's say between 9:30 and 10:30? So we have this volunteer database, and we start sending emails out to these volunteers, and some of the volunteers would say, oh wow, this school is so close to where I work. I can do this once a week, anytime, and then I can go to work at 10:30, because he doesn't go to work before 10:30 anyway, type of thing, right? So that's how we do the volunteer. This is honest.
And where do the funds come from?
We are basically funded by 16 or 17 sponsors who have a commitment to fund us for the next 3 years. So there's an X number of dollars that they've been committed to us, and we run our operations that way, and all the teaching materials that we induct or procure, that actually is expensive. And we'd like to give it out because we work with a lot of mid-tier and lower community neighborhood schools. We would like to give that material out for free, which we have been doing so far. So to sustain those costs, yes, we would like people to come in and look at our work, see how it goes, get involved as volunteers, go back to your boss and say, this is a great project. Next in your budget, you need to give these guys $50,000.
Richard, something very interesting. It's opportunity and niche market. And I've always said that. That's why on my last show, when I was ending, I said, this is not something this is not a service. You're not doing anybody a favor.
Yeah.
Work will happen. People will get fed and people will get taught.
Correct.
God will take care of it. It's an opportunity for you, whether you became part of it or not.
Exactly.
So the opportunity to invest in projects like this is fantastic. How does your organization work? What sort of input do you need? Is there a volunteer opportunity? Other than, of course, you're already taking in recruits. But what happens is, whenever you do show like this, people ask questions. Young students, they say, what can we do? Can we become part of it or not?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of opportunity to work with us for different kinds of people. So sort of similar to what Azra was talking about earlier, we really welcome it when professionals from various other industries and sectors would like to volunteer their time working with the kids who are being taught by our fellows, because there is so much more that needs to be done with them. So while we're doing the teaching, it would be very helpful if somebody else could come in and give them career advice, if somebody else would come in and do co-curriculars with them, because we want to make sure that in the 2 years that we have working with these kids, we give them a lifetime's worth, right? So there's definitely those volunteering opportunities, and anybody who's interested can just write into us at volunteer@iteachforpakistan.org, and we'd love to accommodate them. And then, of course, what we're definitely like I think most other non-profit companies, we're definitely looking for funds, and we're constantly fundraising. At the moment, our largest benefactor is the Aman Foundation itself, and then a few very generous individuals. And we're constantly looking to expand that so that we can try and ensure that we are able to recruit, train, and place many more excellent teachers and get them to schools across Karachi to begin with, Lahore next, and then onwards into the interior of Sindh.
Just to add to that, I think what she said is right. I mean, you just need to find 1 hour from your morning. For example, if you go to office at 9, you go to office at 10, and at 9 you go to a school. You can help them out. You see, the amazing thing is, and I try to role model that, and I like to tell people, but nobody, like you said, right, Azra, it's so easy to find money and it's so difficult to find time, but time is really what we need. And I hope that most of the corporate people who are, be it middle management, high management, find the time, be part of something wonderful and make a difference.
I want to tell a personal story. In 1989, I went to Dubai. I went to school with a friend who's Arab from UAE. So I went visiting in 1989, and this is when Dubai was just beginning to happen. And he had reasonable, Arab, so he had reasonable amount of money. So I said, what are you doing in Dubai, for God's sake? And, come on, come to Karachi. You'll have a better life. So he laughed and he took the name of another emirate at that time. I will not take a name because it's a very prosperous emirate now. And he said, you know what? People have Rolls Royces there, but they have no roads to drive them on. So maybe I have a cheap Mercedes here. His word. Maybe I have a cheap Mercedes. What do I do with it in Karachi? So what I'm trying to say is, sure, we get caught up in making money. We have wealth. We get caught up in building a better life for ourselves, but we forget to understand where will we live this better life. How long can we just keep traveling back and forth for vacations and summers? We need to build a better world that we need to live in. Right. So it's not really take an hour out, because if we don't help these children, tomorrow when these children come into power, they'll destroy our lives. When we are old and done,
it's for our future.
Thank you. So we need to invest in our own future when we are old and done. Sir, about your project, how are you funding it? What's the opportunity in working with you?
We always need funding. We don't have large donors with a large donor base. As I mentioned earlier, we sort of built this work from the ground up, and mashallah, it's grown. And but investing in educating a child, just take for example our school. We started in Sakkar in 2010 after the floods. It was the first school for the deaf that ever came up in that area. In the first 2 months, we had about 30 children. And we don't advertise or anything. By May of that same year, we had 200 children.
Wow.
And we provide pick and drop service because otherwise the kids can't come. We're pick and drop children that are from Khairpur, Shikarpur, Panoakil, Pirjogo, Piarlo. Even we had 2 kids coming from as far as Gotki. So, and this is Ate Jate on a daily basis. So transportation is one of our biggest costs, but without it, the kids can't come to school. We provide uniform, lunch, teacher salaries, books, materials, vocational training materials. So we have a very active sponsor student program, and we would welcome any of your listeners to get involved because it's making a huge difference in the life of that child. Because education is it's not a one-off. It's not putting in a water pump or building a clinic and it's done. It's, 10 to 15 years of a child's life that needs constant renewal. And that sustainability is always the biggest challenge, obviously.
Do you have the resource available for setting up this, if somebody provides you space and a locality, what sort of resource, would you have the capacity to open new centers?
We do, but with the provision that someone be willing to take on assisting with the funding for that, because the operational expenses, salaries and all that goes into the transportation can be demanding. Although the schools up to date, we've gotten free buildings given to us by, and we'd like to thank, Sindh Planning and Development Department. They've been supportive. Sindh Tefta has given us a building in Nawab Shah and in Gulistani Johar. The Rangunwala Foundation has given us a building in Hyderabad. So, this is cooperating with the local, whether it's the public or private sector, we come up with great results,
We are so crisscrossed, it's not even funny.
How is this?
2010 is about the same time I made a lot of trips to Sakhar.
Interesting.
And because of the floods.
Yeah.
So I was working with Pakistan Rangers Sindh, who were doing fantastic work there. So I said, how can I facilitate? I don't like becoming the system. I like to work with the system. So I worked with them. And we went there a lot. And they asked you if premises were made available to you.
Yeah.
And we raised a lot of money
Definitely.
through TV. I was in current affairs at that time. So we raised 30 million rupees. And interestingly, no, 30 million, but what was left over.
Wow.
And then the DG Rangers, then he doesn't like his name to be taken, so I will not take his name. But then DG Rangers said, well, you know what? You've saved 30 million. I'll match with 1 month's salary of Pakistan Rangers Sindh.
Wow.
We put this money together, and we built a community center with the leftover money.
That's
so,
amazing.
No, just short of Toll Plaza, Hyderabad, there's a beautiful building on the right, built by this gentleman. Kudos to him.
They're amazing people.
And what they've done is my contribution was only the initial funding and whatever support I give. And that center is running with transport, picking up mothers and women and kids from the whole few kilometers range, bring them in, teach them, drop them. So I would make a phone call, I would request if maybe you could set up something.
Yeah, we'd definitely be very open to explore that.
I mean, just when I got involved with the deaf school, if you don't have a deaf child in your house, or if you are not touching you don't even know what the world is like. And the first time I went to a school, and something which was very amazing, and I told you,
please do tell,
they had this huge hall, and then he said, this is class 2, 4, 5, 6, they're all in one hall. And I said, how can they work? Because it must be noisy. He said, no, nobody speaks.
Correct.
So they were all facing the wall, the other was facing the other wall, and the classes were going on. Because it was all silent. It was amazing. And another thing that, when he invited me to this Gulistani George school, which they got recently, it was and they had the entire show where the girls danced and the boys did shows. But the interesting part is, I remember Richard coming up and says, by the way, if you want to applaud for them, don't clap, because they can't hear. Shake your hand.
Well, that's how you clap in sign language.
This is how you clap. It was, to me, it was like, I never thought of it. We would have clapped. And usually you clap, maybe there's a chair in front of you, they can't even see it. So these are things that, these are part of our society. These people, we need to, I would love to learn sign language. I've already told him, and I just haven't found the time.
We've got a very amazing and innovative tool coming up. We received a grant, and sign language is highly recognized in most developed countries. In America, it's the third most studied language in America. It's taught on college campuses. You can go into any bookstore, you can get videos. Wow. There's websites, there's no end. In Pakistan, there are no resources for Pakistan Sign Language. Sign language is not universal. Every country has their own sign language. And it has nothing to do with the native spoken language. Like American Sign Language, Canadian Sign Language, British Sign Language, Australian Sign Language are all different, although English is the native tongue. So, because it's a grassroots language, it grows from the deaf community up. No one's flying around the world teaching sign language.
Slang and
everything, And in fact, it's not only indigenous to each country, but even regionally. Like the sign language in Karachi is different than in Punjab, than in
different phrases, different.
And in Pakistan, there have been a few attempts to document this. There was 1 or 2 books, but they're out of print, and they had about 500 signs. But we face this challenge. We have all these kids studying biology, chemistry, history, skills, sewing, embroidery. There's no language, there's no signs for those terminologies, and there's no dictionary. So we're in the process now of developing what we call the Pakistan Visual Sign Language Dictionary. And it's going to be a digital dictionary that's going to have 5,000 words.
Wow.
There'll be the sign, a picture, English, then Urdu, and an English voiceover and an Urdu voiceover. And this is now in process. We've already completed half the project, and we're ready to launch, inshallah, by September 1st. And this will be up on a web portal, printed in book and DVD, and we're even going to make a smartphone app. So you could access these 5,000 words immediately. So think of a parent of a deaf child that needs to learn sign language. And this will be then given free of cost, available for the whole country to use. So we're very excited about this project. And
if I may, with apology, you said your own son. Did that inspire you to do this?
Yeah, obviously.
That triggered you.
Some things happen in our lives that put us in a direction that we never would have thought
I
of
think everything
otherwise.
happens in life to put us in direction, and at times we fail to see the signs.
That's a quick one.
Yeah.
They don't just teach the children, they also teach the parents.
Yeah.
How to communicate.
How to communicate with the kids, which is
Parents
amazing.
make it mandatory. The parents have to come in
Have to come.
2 Saturdays.
Otherwise, there's no support
We
system.
send our vans out. We bring the parents in 2 Saturdays a week, and we teach all the moms and dads who, the majority are from low income, low education backgrounds. Many are living Kachiyabadi areas, and they're learning. Not only are they learning to communicate with their children, they're actually learning to read and write themselves. And we get an average attendance of 75 to 100 parents per school per session. So this has been very effective.
Is the facility available to affluent people, people who have?
I mean, it's open to all.
It's
We don't discriminate against the rich people.
The reason I raise that is because a lot of people feel too shy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, disability is a taboo in our culture.
And this is about creating awareness. That's why, for example, the KFC project has been so great in creating awareness, because people go in to order some chicken and they realize, oh my God, these people are deaf. What do I do? And they then realize they're very capable and very productive, and it just changes the way people view things.
Richard was just telling me they have put over 300 students in jobs
in the last
and that's where the corporates can come into place. If you are a corporate, head of the corporate, find there are jobs that you can give to a deaf. Approach them.
We've got the ballet service at the Atrium Cinema and Dolmen Mall. They're deaf kids working. We got DHL, UBL.
So you actually put in
salt and pepper.
mainstream.
Yeah, definitely. We liaise with the corporates and find
What inspired you? And also, closing notes, we're coming towards the end. What's inspired you to do what you're doing?
I've always been a higher education person. For 14 years, that's what I did. So I was teaching and researching and career counseling at the master's and the MS level, even some PhD research. And when I left that organization, I was still core in education and heart. And rather than join some other higher education place when the INJAZ opportunity came in, I realized I'd been there and done it. And this is where I realized, okay, if I took over something like this and I can start off this career counseling and putting the kids into at least trying to figure out what they want to do at an earlier age, they can go back and say, if we had not taken an INJAZ course, maybe we wouldn't have realized how much tax are we paying to sustain this part of the community or a city. Or how do I take an interview? Do I know how to research a company before I go for an interview? Do I know I have to dress up well and be there before time? Do I know how to write a proper resume and what would click to the industry that I'm applying in? So this lack of kids not having a very clear direction in a career path or career counseling actually got me into doing something like this. And being with a social impact organization, obviously I knew this work and the team would make a difference.
Fantastic.
So it was making a difference.
How about yourself?
So, I think my experience was that I graduated from LUMS a few years ago, and I was a social sciences major, and I didn't want to end up in a bank or, with all due respect, even working at a company. He wouldn't have hired me. But
he can't deal with people who challenge him.
But Vangi is our biggest supporter. That's all right. And a personal advisor and mentor. So, but anyway, so at that time I really wanted to do something that would really teach me what Pakistan is like really at the grassroots and give me an opportunity to do something meaningful in which I could really have an impact on other people, not as privileged as myself. However, there was nothing out there. There was a structured program for young people like myself to give back. So when I learned about the Teach for America program and Teach for India and Teach for China and Lebanon and Malaysia, I was so excited because I realized this can be done in Pakistan and we can use
and better.
And better.
Yes, very good.
And better.
Very well said.
So I just had to get involved.
Saad, closing notes.
Thank you, Faisal, for giving me this opportunity.
Oh,
I'll keep coming.
It's an honor, and I thank you for giving purpose to media, to be very honest. Thank you all of you for taking time out. Before I leave, yes, you have my word.
Thank you.
An hour a week at least.
Done.
And more.
Let's lock it, or being on air is locked.
And
you're not quitting, right? No program, no channel. Done.
But I'm offering you and more, which I'll tell you off air.
Okay.
Because what you're doing is something I have been doing under the name of personality quotient. I thoroughly believe that we are, in Pakistan, we're probably the most capable nation, if not one of the most. We're very intelligent, high IQ, smart people. But we lack, in the area which you are exactly working in, we lack personality. So we feel shy, back foot, defensive. We think we don't know how to eat or talk, and we go like on the back foot. So if you could just polish the personalities, we would shine brighter than any country in the world. So thus I invented personality quotient. I offer it into your service, and you have my time.
Done.
Thank you very much, and good night.